Katie, thank you so much for taking the time to visit. It's extremely important conversation that we're about to have, and your like explosion on the scene with social media, especially Instagram, I think is evident of so many parents are looking for answers and they don't believe what they're being told. So, if you don't care, give us that little bit of introduction to who you are, and then we're going to dive into just two people as parents and being in a space of trying to understand. Maybe there's something different than the, conventional wisdom.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me on. It really is such a pleasure. And about me, I'm a physician assistant, conventionally trained. I graduated in 2020. I actually had to be pulled out of my clinical rotations for a little while because of the lockdowns and COVID and everything. But luckily, we were able to get back in and I was able to graduate. And I've practiced in urgent care, family medicine, and then currently do telehealth for kind of longevity medicine, a lot of IV infusion clinics, and also previous experience with the wellness company, actually, with Dr. Peter McCullough, which was incredible. That was a really fun time. So I feel like I've had just in the last 4 years of experience, all of my experience with patients have been very I haven't been practicing a long time, only 4.5 years, but high volume, right? Like in 2021, I was seeing 60, 70 patients a day for COVID related things and also on top of regular urgent care things. My family medicine experience is with, I was working in downtown Los Angeles at two different clinics. And so a huge Hispanic population, totally different type of healthcare needs, chronic conditions in kids and adults. And those were low income areas as well. Also high volume. I moved to Texas, which is where I married my husband, and I worked a little bit in a low income area up there. And then we have our family now up in Idaho. We've been moving around. My husband builds power lines. So we've had to kind of hop around a little bit during our marriage. But we have two babies. I have a 2-year old and a 1-year old, currently doing some telehealth and but mostly raising my children because my husband works full time. So I love my job as a PA, love my previous experience, and then the job that I'm doing right now. But because I'm raising two children at home, and I have a lot of friends who are moms, my own family, and my sister has started to have children as well. And everybody has questions. Everybody has so many questions on what is being said in the media, what's being told to them by their conventional providers. They're wondering why am I getting kicked out of a pediatric office for asking questions about something like vaccines? So they had a lot of questions, and I was really encouraged by my family to start my social media account just because I enjoy podcasts and learning and keeping up with my credentialing and my education there. So I thought I would just start making little short videos answering common questions that people have. And when I first started the account, I kind of thought I would talk more about birth control or cholesterol or one of those, there's so many kind of lies in the medical world that it's like, okay, what do you tackle first? And I did a poll for my then audience. I think I had 150 followers at the time. And I said, what do you guys want to hear about? And I did a poll and they said childhood vaccines. I was like, okay, let's get into this. I did not know the bear that I tackled when it came into really diving into this research and this world of vaccine. And it really has been a whirlwind, now at 100,000 followers yesterday, which I cannot even believe it. I started it in May 2025. It really has been such a whirlwind and so exciting, but really so encouraging to hear that my work is helping families, helping parents understand a little bit better on how they can make decisions for their family in the safest way.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's a testament to people really care about this conversation, and probably the being gaslit every time you ask a question about it doesn't, hurt you, right? Doesn't hurt you getting a following as you're answering, objectively. I think that's what's really cool about you is, like, you kinda your tagline is that everything conventional and crunchy, right? Like, you're trying
Right.
to, straddle the fence in an objective way, right? And not be
Yeah.
just one sided. And so I think that's super, super cool. But, you know, what made you dive in and say, maybe there's more to it than what I was traditionally taught? Like what I learned in school is like every doctor I've ever talked to, or nurse, or PA, is, well, I was taught it was safe and effective. Like they didn't tell me why it's safe and effective.
Yeah.
They just said it's safe and effective, all of it, right? And so, what
Right.
made you like look and be open to maybe there's more to the story?
Yeah, that's a great question because it really was honestly kind of the last thing that in terms of the topics that you can go into of, what I was taught versus what is actually reality. Um, it's kind of one of the last things I learned about. But really, I think what kind of started opening my eyes to more alternative medicine, you can call it. I graduated in 2020 in COVID. I mean, really, this was the catalyst for so many people. The To just kind of get the veil lifted off of our eyes a little bit of how um, conventional medicine works, how maybe some clinical trials and testing for vaccines work. I was raised conventionally. I was vaccinated as a child. My mom never, she took me to the doctor, but she rarely took me because I just wasn't sick often. And so it wasn't like she was, like a hippie. She took me to the doctor when I needed it, but I just didn't really need to go. And so we weren't I never really questioned a lot of it. I think I just was raised not having to rely on doctors a lot just because I never grew up with any health issues. And so I, was just kind of like, oh, you go if you need it or you don't if you don't. You trust the one that you go to. Like I didn't have any reason to question that until kind of around COVID time. And I was like, man, like, is this really how it is? Like, is this, they're going to push this medical product after, 6 months of testing on it? Like, that just seems really odd. Um, and beyond that, I was looking into birth control because birth control in school, you're basically taught if a woman has any problems with women's health needs, you just give them birth control and it'll be fine. Like that's basically what we're taught. And so then you start learning about kind of, okay, there's actually a lot of side effects to birth control and a lot of negative things about that. And then you start learning about, cholesterol, how cholesterol is actually like not a bad thing, usually, if you're metabolically healthy. And red meat doesn't typically cause cancer. And so it's just kind of like these talking points that are so popular now, they really weren't that way previously. And so it just is kind of this rabbit hole. And I didn't, when I had my first daughter, she's 2 now. At the time, I kind of I read a couple of books about, each vaccine, kind of the testing behind it. And kind of my attitude when I had my first daughter in 2023 was, the risk of these diseases is low, like in terms of their complications and things like that. I feel comfortable treating diseases as they come up. I'm a physician assistant. I can do this. And I've heard that people can be injured by vaccines. And really, people didn't think that you could be injured by vaccines until people started to get injured by the COVID vaccine. And so I'm seeing these injuries from the COVID vaccine. I'm like, okay, what are these other injuries that could potentially be happening with the childhood schedule? Um, and I was just like, I don't want to take that risk. Like, I just don't want to take that risk. That's kind of where I was at with my daughter. And now I just think there's so much more meat and data behind that statement now, that I'm a lot more passionate about what I'm talking about. But I still want to be able to give informed consent to parents who, don't feel comfortable treating diseases, or these things make them nervous, or their kids are in daycare, or there's different risk factors for each family. And I truly don't think it's a one size fits all plan. But yeah, that's kind of the story of how I, was a little stepwise kind of journey on figuring out
Yeah.
what questions to ask.
Definitely steps there. For me, my oldest, when he was 18 months, almost 2, he he had a vaccine reaction to where, yeah, DTaP, MMR, right in there where the bile shut down and he pooped chalk white, right? Scared me to death. I was working EMS at the
Oh,
time, and so I'm calling all my doctor friends, the paramedics, "Hey, what get him in." And so we did, and our pediatrician that said is absolutely the vaccine. So I was surprised by that because I was always told they were safe and effective, right? And,
yeah.
so w was very, very taken back by that happening to my child, right? And then fast forward a couple years later, and he's diagnosed with stage 4 Wilms, right? Stage 4 kidney cancer. And so,
Mm.
in an attempt to understand that and see if there's a connection and whatever, I happened across the book Dissolving Illusions, right? Suzanne Humphries. And
Oh, yeah.
it's an eye opener that I think everybody should, absolutely look into. So, what
Yeah.
what is your stance now on more of just kind of what you were taught in school, safe and effective, with the experience you have now, and obviously the way you reacted, Imma say you've read Dissolving Illusions and know of
Yeah.
Suzanne. So, like, what is your take on that blanket statement, safe and effective?
It's truly a crime to healthcare professionals, especially as physician assistants, where we go to school for 2 to 3 years instead of medical doctors going, 4 years of medical school, 4 years of residency. Our training is, we get our hands dirty quick. We learn the things that we need to know and we have experience prior. You basically, when you're going to PA school, you come in with a little bit of experience in the healthcare field prior to that. And then you go into PA school and it's grad school. So it's 2 to 3 years. And so they tell you what you need to know. We had one class on vaccine preventable illness. Everyone, they show you photos of, dying, starving little kids and all of their terrible rashes and whatever they died from. And they tell you there's a vaccine for it. They maybe I recall them saying, there's a chance of anaphylaxis, like allergic reactions with vaccines, but they're safe, they're effective, and they actually made us chant. One time, the teacher was like, "Vaccines don't cause autism." Say it with me. Vaccines don't. It's um indoctrination at its finest, honestly. And it really is a disservice to our patients because PAs do such great work. I mean, we are hired and we can go into any field of medicine immediately out of school and with some training start seeing patients. And so it really is a disservice to the parents coming in who have legitimate questions about vaccines, and you go to the textbook that you've had, and it just tells you all the complications of the diseases and nothing in regards to the vaccines. And it really is true that they don't have a lot of great information about the problems that vaccines could potentially cause. But we do have some. Um, I think when you start going down that rabbit hole, you see kind of why we don't have more information on what these vaccines could be doing to our kids.
But in reality, we actually have a lot of information, right? It's just been suppressed, it's been just picked over, and we've been gaslit about all of it. Like Andy Wakefield's been talking about this for a long time, and he was completely just
Yeah.
canceled, right?
Well, and he really was it we had a talk about Andy Wakefield and they basically just called him a quack. Like they're just like, this guy's insane. He did these unethical studies on children. He was studying them and he got his license taken away. It was terrible. I've recently, gotten to know more of his work and it's it's like that's not what happened. That's not
Well,
what happened. And it's really and I honestly don't think that the people who educate PAs or doctors have bad intentions. I don't. Like I just think they are just doing what they're taught. And we really have to as providers be diligent and do our due diligence and learn more so that we can answer the questions that parents have about these products.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. But I think it's extremely important that we, since we brought up Andy, we discuss like Judy Mikovits, right? Like Robert O'Becker, like Bernice Eddy, right? Like we have seen good scientists, good physicians be canceled, right? Like, and so, for example, this is the one that just caused me to just my mind to explode was understanding the polio vaccine, right? Like this is
Mm,
the one that gets me really fighting mad. And I have to credit, Dr. Jack Cruz for even bringing this to my world to explore it. But, SV40 being contaminated in the polio vaccine, right? And then Bernice Eddy
yeah,
get canceled because she said that, hey, there's a virus that causes cancer in the polio vaccine, right? Like that's
mm,
insane to me that it was
yeah,
known and somebody was just completely destroyed because they were trying to help people, right? Like that's just messed
right.
up. And so like this history, and this is nothing new. And then to know that, the Pfizer has SV40 promoters in there, SV40 enhancers, it's just
Mhm.
disgusting. And so
Yeah,
when Jack says to understand science, you need to understand the history of science, right? And
yeah,
so like this is such an important aspect because you've hit on essentially the indoctrination, the siloing of education, especially in the medical field. And
mhm,
we are all paying the consequences of that.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It really is. Well, I feel like the paradigm shift really needs to, come from instead of just treating these different systems in the body that we have, we need to treat the patient in front of us as a whole. And historically, prior to Rockefeller and all of those things, that's kind of what people did, especially in like Eastern Chinese medicine. Um, but since then, it really has been okay. You have a heart problem, here's your heart medication. You have a joint problem, here's your joint medication. You have, you know, and when you go back and look at the, um, you know, institution of all of those medications and protocols, they were all heavily influenced by big pharma or big government. And it really is interesting to see how our healthcare system has shifted to this problem focused care instead of root cause care. And it's because the problem focused care is incentivized. It like you can treat each problem with a certain thing, and each one of those things makes billions of dollars. Like they're not going to want to help you with just doing what people have been doing before, which is getting out in the sun, running around, eating protein, and not eating processed foods or sugar. Like, I mean, it really is incredible that doctors, instead of relying on what we've been doing forever, are now only relying on controlling their patients' conditions instead of actually healing them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's spot on. So you brought up sun. Let's go there. I would imagine that since you have been having this public platform to where you're talking about these really important conversations, that you've had a lot of people that have been vaccine injured reach out, right, to tell their story or seek help, guidance, and whatever. So, what are you looking personally at with the sun, right? Like why is that on your radar of being healing? I'm gonna tie that back in, but like because to me, establishing the natural cycles, redox, getting focused in on the underlying biophysics of how we operate is the
Yeah.
solution. But like what are you where are you on your viewing of the importance of that nature and in the sun?
Man, that is such a great question. I mean, to start with just the basic, the sun helps us have vitamin D, and vitamin D is such an important has such an important role in our immune function, our bone health, our brain. I mean, vitamin D is so essential to our health, and the fact that the sun is the primary like helper to help our body produce vitamin D. I mean, that's number one. That's kind of the most basic level. When you start to get down the road of there's so much more data coming out about how balancing your circadian rhythm and getting back on nature's clock is what could be one of the factors contributing to your overall health and one of the root causes of why people could be so sick. I mean, you look at the chronic disease rate in people who are like night shift workers, like nurses or, whoever works the night shift. And if your sleep schedule is off, I mean, their rates of chronic disease are so much higher than just the regular population. And that speaks to the importance of just having a regular sleep schedule, not even, necessarily being outside, but I think that having that sleep schedule, that circadian rhythm is so important. But then you even get deeper down into it where it's like, okay, grounding, touching grass, that electron transfer is anti-inflammatory, plus the sunlight, plus if you're standing by the ocean or things like that, like that electrical charge moving through your body is anti-inflammatory and is crucial for your health. um, and making your terrain a more healthy place to be able to fight whatever pathogen is coming your way. I mean, there's so many levels when it comes to how nature can be so healing for us, but our society is in no way incentivizing us to be outside touching grass and being in the sun. I mean, you have women who our natural clock, we have a 24-hour clock and then we have a month-long clock, right? And our hormones are so dependent on both and it's so intricate and complex. But when you put a woman in a cubicle from 8 to 5 and call that women empowerment, that is killing her. Like that type of lifestyle is what is the least healthy for a woman. I mean and so I I just think that our society is built to have people be sick, and we need to incentivize work and ways to live that is actually healthy for our bodies, and so much of that revolves around being in nature.
100%. It's what I love about Roger Schalt, Dr. Schalt. He's come out and put out incredible information around the healing effects of the sun and being able. It reminds me of you, right? Having this conventional aspect, but also bringing in the fundamentals of how nature's actually working. And so,
Right.
one with me, let's hit on that vitamin D a little bit because what has become increasingly evident is that our supplement companies are really no different than big pharma. And
Yep.
they're shoving these solutions that cost money, they make money, and they're really not helping either, right? So, like
Exactly.
when we have a conversation around supplemental vitamin D versus 25 hydroxycholesterol, that is not the same thing, right? Like it's simply
Yeah.
not because of the sun sulfating and then going, kidney, liver, all of those precursors to vitamin D are so unbelievably important that we omit or we completely just skip and pretend like it's the same thing. So, like, what are your thoughts on supplements as the alternative, for lack of a better term, right? Because most people, this is what I see. I want your opinion on this. Is we go from
Mhm.
the big pharma model to the supplement model, and we think that we're
Yeah.
doing really, really good. So, what are your thoughts there?
I think that's such a great point that you hit on, going from big pharma to big wellness. I mean, big wellness is massive, and I appreciate some of the sentiment behind it, kind of being like, okay, let's get you off your medications and get you on things that your body can actually, that your body needs, something like vitamin D. But then you have to look at the motive, right? They're making a ton of money off of these things too. And their quality of the products, like you said, there's so many, you know, when you're getting your vitamin D from the sun, there's so many processes that your body goes through in order to create that. And then when you're supplementing it, it is different. Now, I do think it can be helpful. I do. I especially when you're doing vitamin D and K2, because if you're just supplementing with vitamin D, you can actually affect your bone health. But when you're adding in that K2, it's going to be more bioavailable for your body and able to use it in a way that's helpful. Um, but it really does, depend on the company you're getting from and if they allow for third party testing, if there's not any contaminants like heavy metals and things like that. But honestly, I believe that you can get all of your needs from nature, from food, from the sun, from real water, like, real good water. I absolutely think people can be better. We are not deficient in supplements. We are deficient in minerals and vitamins, and we can get those through food. That's what the Lord gave us is our world to steward and to keep us alive. And so we absolutely can live in a way that is just relying on nature. However, I will say I take supplements and it's because I am, my son is a year old and being a mother of two babies, sometimes you're running around and you have like a piece of cheese for lunch. Like your body is depleted and sometimes it's not I don't wanna make excuses. I'm saying, it can be difficult to really be in it can be difficult to nourish your body in the way that is the most healthy for you. And so taking supplements from a company that I trust is making good quality products, it's not useless. Your body can definitely use some extra support and nourishment, especially if it's in the most bioavailable form when you're getting it from that product. You can use um, supplements that are food based. A lot of people like that. That's a great option. I don't think the ones that I use are food based, but they are in a way like where the folate is methylated. So that's going to be what's helpful for your body and in the most bioavailable for your body. The iron is chelated, so it's not harsh on your stomach. You're able to digest it more. So there's definitely a use for these products and they can be so helpful. I personally have noticed such a difference when I've started taking just my daily vitamin, my omega-3 and my magnesium glycinate. Like I literally only take those three. I think there's a when I say conventional and crunchy, I call crunchy a spectrum because you have your crunchy of like, I only am in nature. I make everything from scratch. Everything the government does is bad. And it's like there's this crunchy where if you think of like I live in Idaho. And so there's a lot of like Idaho crunchy, right? They would never touch supplements because they're like, one, I don't want to spend money on them. And two, I can get it all from food. So why would I even supplement? So there's that. And then you have your bougie, crunchy wellness person who is like the biohacker, Gary Brecka, like taking all of the things. And there's a lot of great things about that. I mean, you can you can do a lot of things to optimize your body there, but it takes a lot of time and money and focus to really biohack your entire body. I think it's personally a lot easier to be kind of the more traditional crunchy, okay, I'm gonna kind of help my body out a little here, but I'm gonna really focus on my food, my nutrition, and trying to get out in nature.
Yeah. The, I'm just gonna say that on the supplement perspective, I have gone through that spectrum, right? Like started
Yeah.
where Dave Asprey had a massive impact on me early on, and I've just moved further and further and further and further away from them. The mineral aspect is extremely important. I agree
Yeah.
wholeheartedly. But the I got a fly in the office is driving me crazy. I got it locked in here. Um, the aspect that I hope more people will talk more about is really this biophysical component, and this is what scares me on the supplements that I think we really need to make sure that we understand, right? Like the safe and effective, safe and effective. Is it safe and effective? We need to question that whole narrative. One
Mhm.
thing that has been extremely eye-opening for me is Robert Becker's work, the body electric, and then when when I doubt that you were taught in school that bone's piezoelectric, right? Like, their collagen's piezoelectric, or the DNA actually has delayed bioluminescence, right? But all of this is extremely verifiable, right? Like, all we got to do is
Yeah.
crack open Roland Van Wyck's book, Becker's book, and then we can see this electric component of it. And so, my only point to go through that, just for you and anybody listening, is that we really can throw off the electromagnetic happenings of the body when we put in a substance that shouldn't be there. So that's just really
Mhm.
key. And because we're also not taught in school about deuterium, right? Like, deuterium's not something that's on anybody's radar. It's an isotope of
Mhm.
hydrogen. That doesn't matter. Well, when you look at Gabor Smollet's work, like, oh, maybe it matters a whole heck of a lot, especially in the context of cancers. We gotta be
Yeah.
careful about our supplements, is all I'm saying, and you can type in everything that we just, kinda highlighted, and I've done multiple interviews on those topics, but the the food system says I own a grocery store, right? A farmer's market,
Mhm.
that's my whole world. So, by doing a regenerative biodynamic farming what is local to wherever we are, and it's seasonal, all of those compounds that we're discussing should be in the food. It's not reality
Yeah.
for most people
Right.
living in cities, and we don't have the farms there. So it's extremely important for me to promote your local farmer wherever you are.
Yeah.
Just know 'em, raise it in your own backyard, or do something where you're supporting these local farmers. So the food and medicine thing I think is really important, but I think that we still have to go back to what we were talking about earlier on the sun, right? The food is completely dictated by the sun, right? That we don't have pineapples in Chicago in December, right? Because they don't grow there based on the sun, right? And so, like, just I think that that's something else that I get kind of no, not kind of frustrated. I get very frustrated on the food gurus that are talking about, well, you should be eating, drinking coconut water and eating a plant-based diet, right? Like, it's insane. It
Yeah.
Without the nuances of what we're talking about. And I'm about to give you back the floor. You talked about the cycles of a woman in a 24 and on a monthly rotation, but somehow we
Yeah.
think that the seasons of our geography don't matter either, right? In the context of food.
Yeah.
And so, like, what are your thoughts on bringing in that other layer of nuance?
It's something where I haven't personally fully gone down the rabbit hole of um how truly that can affect the woman's hormones, but I do know that there are very reputable people who recommend that even if you are getting grass-fed regenerative farmed, meat, you should be getting it not from if I'm in California and you're in Arkansas, like I shouldn't be buying meat from you. I should be buying meat that's raised in California close locally to where I live because the compounds and everything that that cow is eating and everything that they are exposed to, it matters in terms of what I'm putting in my body locally. And it does make a difference. Now, I can't go into a ton of detail on that because I haven't gone down that much of a crunchy road yet, but I definitely am supportive of that sort of, way of living, that diet. I definitely, you know, believe that that can be really helpful. I do want to say though, I'm living in California right now. I don't have I'm living in a very tiny home right now because my we're traveling for my husband's work and we don't have the space to buy a local cow like we would normally do. We don't have the space or the place to be able to do that. And so I really try to meet parents where they're at in terms of their um how they're trying to feed their families and support their families. I mean, it sounds like blasphemy, but I don't know if you've seen the documentary Sacred Cow
Yeah.
with Rob Wolf. Um, Something he brought up in that I think is interesting is there was a study done on comparing, you know, cattle who that's farm raised or cattle that's grass fed. And that at least in that documentary, there was a study saying that the nutritional content of the beef, that I wouldn't say this about chicken, I wouldn't say this about fish at all. But the nutritional content of the beef wasn't super significantly different. Now, I know that's a highly, highly debated topic, and that's probably something that you are incredibly, knowledgeable about being a farmer. But I do think it's important for people to know that beef is something where if you're eating beef instead of pasta or something else, if you have a higher protein diet, you are going to be exponentially healthier than somebody who's eating processed foods, right? So um I think it's so important for people to go down the farthest they can in terms of the excellence that they are putting on the table for their families. Like I have no issue with that. I think but there's so many parents where you start talking about how, there's bioluminescence in our bones and we need to be eating locally, and that just goes past them. Like it's just not something that they even can think about at all. So the most important thing is, okay, put meat on your child's plate. Like that helps. Don't give them Doritos. That doesn't help. Like that's where we kind of need to start with so many families. But I do, if I had my way, my husband grew up cattle farming, and I would love to have my own cattle farm, regenerative, doing all my own things, having all of my own animals. And that's a goal for us in the future. That's for sure.
I love it. I love it. There's room in Arkansas for good people. So
Oh, good.
yeah, y'all get down here. Um, The the one thing that got me just absolutely, completely just mind blown was, Ken Berry's a friend, and so he wrote the book Lies My Doctor Told Me, right? And
Mm,
I had
I've read it.
such cognitive dissonance when I first read some of the stuff he was saying, right? I was like, I can't process. So I get it when we're having some of these conversations and parents feel overwhelmed. So
Mm,
let's let me give you just a brief overview of what I think and tell me where you disagree, where you agree, how we can get it. Get kids off screens, get kids outside,
mm,
get kids
mhm.
in a dark bedroom at night, get them that way we have, natural melatonin cycles, right? See the morning sun, get the little bare feet on the ground. Like that's how we get healthy kids. And then just eat
Absolutely.
as local, seasonal, and natural as possible. So
Absolutely. I wouldn't disagree with one thing you said.
I think that my greatest hope is on top of the whole vaccine conversation is that we are able to articulate and relay just how damaging those blue lights are, how damaging our
Mm,
artificial
mhm.
environment is, and our reliance on all of these technologies that have the non-native EMFs, the watches, the sunglasses, all of these things that are causing a barrier or causing interference are really hurting. And so what
Yeah.
I have seen, and I know this may sound a little offensive to some people, is that we are absolutely destroying our children's brains by digital
Mhm,
babysitting. And it
mhm.
is, in my opinion, akin to child abuse when you realize what you're doing. So,
Yeah.
know better, do better. But like, I just try and put that out there. It is destroying their brains, like
Yeah.
100%. And so, how or are you getting to the point to where you agree with that, you're gonna talk about that, you're it's something that you apply, don't apply, like, what are your thoughts on that? Because that seems, pretty bombastic of a statement.
No, I totally agree with you. I honestly like the fact that kids in school are given a Chromebook instead of a piece of paper and a pen is criminal to me. Like that we know how bad screens are for children. And, this is not the okay, I need 10 minutes, 10 extra minutes to make dinner, you know, here watch something far away on the wall like that. This is staring at their screen every single day, relying heavily on it for 8-10 hours a day. To me, I don't know how we got there with what we know about how bad screens are for kids. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't understand. um so I don't let I mean, I talk to my family on FaceTime. That's the amount of screen time that my kids get is just looking at my phone, watching my mom talk to them. But that is like pretty much the extent they, in terms of movies, like, we try to only let watch like a movie once every, 3 weeks and like only like 20 minutes at a time or something like that. Really, it's like it's the but you also want to balance like my daughter loves music and she loves Sound of Music in terms of the songs and it's so fun for her to see something like that. So you don't want to, if something is sentimental to you, I think that can have value in terms of how you are parenting your children. Um and letting them, be exposed to, a movie or something like that. But I do think the constant screen time, the little kids shows that are designed to have them look for hours and hours, that fast moving, that fast paced, like all, and then not to mention the content of the shows being completely bogus. I mean, it really is criminal to our kids. I think I don't think there's a balance. I don't think that you need balance when it comes to this. I think occasional use is not going to hurt them, but like the way we are doing screens now is completely I just it's going to be detrimental to their health.
My opinion is we're creating our own asteroid event. Like I think that
Yeah.
how significant the two conversations where mRNA injections and this. I really do think that this is absolutely it's bad. One thing is the whole reason I homeschool, right? I'm not sending my kids to go sit under those lights and on screen. So like,
Yeah,
if they've
totally.
not seen the daylight computer, that's a game changer, right? Like that is absolutely a game changer. Anjan Kata, a friend, he's the founder, and then Tristan Scott, a good friend, and he's joined the team and just blowing it up. But like you can
Yeah.
take it's like a iPad size thing. You can go sit out directly in the sun. You can see everything. It doesn't
Yeah.
have that blue backlight. It's really,
Yeah.
really more circadian friendly and utilizing
Yes.
like something like that. Like that, there can be better technology, and this
Totally.
is the only thing that I know of that falls in that
Right.
realm. But like the daylight computer is a game changer for
Yeah.
when we have to use stuff.
Yeah, you can't, I think I have people in my algorithm who are, like, incredibly crunchy and live off grid, and that's just not realistic for all of us. Like, we can't just, like, never which I don't know how they have an Instagram if they're completely off grid, like, that just doesn't make sense to me. But we have to live in this world and be able to interact with it and know how to use the internet, and we need our kids to be one of my favorite verses is wise as serpents and innocent as doves, right? And so letting them have access to technology, knowing how to use it, but having, what is best for their health in terms of the content that they're taking in. I mean, besides the blue light, I mean, which is a huge health factor, the amount of terrible, when I mean like explicit content of pornography that kids are taking in nowadays and being exposed to it so early, that is detrimental to their health. That is detrimental to everything in terms of mental health and physical health. That is awful. It really is something that I think that is a crisis in and of itself. And but we need our children to be able to know how to work these things so that they can be capable members of society later on. If you don't give your kid until a computer until they're 17, how are they going to get a job, right? Like they really need to know how to work these things. Having resources like a daytime computer or, just very occasional use or even just blue blocking glasses could be helpful or the lights in your home being able to mitigate that. So there are ways where you can optimize your health in a society where you're incentivized to not be healthy.
So, kinda as we're close to wrapping up, this conversation right here is what I think that we need to really highlight in the whole chaos that has been brought about by the autism conversation, right? So,
Mhm.
the environment we're in, that blue light, the destroying melatonin, all of the chronically, low vitamin D, on and on and on and on about the cascading of things that are wrong. We have messed up germ lines. We have sperm and egg both messed up, come together, they create a baby, and then we're insulting them further, the
Yeah.
gestational vaccines, the use of Tylenol. Like, I don't even know why that's controversial. Like, that could, during a certain window, it's like thalidomide. We know thalidomide caused birth defects. Like, why can we say that during a certain window, Tylenol couldn't have a deleterious effect on the neural development? So, like, all that just is crazy to me. But
Mhm.
when we have this germline, because of that has an issue, right? And then we add that tipping point, right? That straw that breaks the camel's back, whether it is an MMR vaccine, DTaP. It was one of the multitudes of ingredients that's in there, right? A heavy metal, a mercury, a formaldehyde, whatever it is, and it's that tipping point. I think that we still need to just come back to, hey, there's a lot going on that we just need to know better and try to implement that has an effect, and the tipping point can be what it is. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, are you asking if I think that the autism epidemic is, just the vaccine, or if I think it's just kind of everything combined? Yeah, I mean, the answer to that, I do think it's everything combined. I absolutely think that. Do I think that there is a lot of kids whose toxin kind of bucket can handle vaccinations? Yes, absolutely. But there are some kids where you're right. That is kind of the straw that breaks the camel's back. It's something where it's like, okay, with everything that our bodies are under in terms of how opposite we are living, in society to how we should be living, to have this epidemic, you know, I do think there are a lot of combining factors. And I do think genetics does play a role. It is so the elephant in the room though, when you really get down to it, is when you're looking at the rise of chronic disease in the last 20 years, eh, 35 years alone, right? When you look at the amount of things that were happening just in that, there were a lot of things between the 1900s and 1986 that were our people were exposed to a lot of toxins and living in a way that was not helpful for our bodies. But when you're looking at from 1986 to 2025, the rise of chronic disease in 2000 being something like 10%, and now we have 54% of our children having a chronic disease. It and when you look at that statistic and just as correlational, which people who are conventional hate correlational things, but you have to look at this. The schedule literally went from three vaccines to now I think there's 20 20 something different illnesses that we're vaccinating for with over 72 doses. 72 doses of vaccinations from 1986 to 2025. That to believe that autism is not caused by some component of that, the cognitive dissonance is wild. Like that to me is it th- it's the one product that is designed to change our immune system. And when you're looking at things like allergic responses, eczema, autoimmune issues, cancer, which has a high core, association with just immunity in general, and neurodevelopment, I mean, there you can't deny that might have an effect. Like, I mean, it really is it's two different worlds of people out there, and it's people who have eyes and the ones that are closing them intentionally.
Amen. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, like, I don't know how you can look at the it is what it is and come to a different conclusion, honestly. I think that, the other graph that 100% lines up with that is between '86 to 2025, the amount of people that have cell phones in their pockets, right? The amount of
Yeah, totally.
5G towers we have now versus what we had in '86, right? Like, so, the technology gap, if you look at the NHANES data, right, like it's massively exploded as well. So I think that
Yeah.
without question, it's multifaceted, but the chronic disease epidemic that we have, like, and that's not even debatable. Like, it's right, it's blatantly obvious everybody is sick. Um, it's what we're doing. We're causing it with lifestyles and what we're putting in our bodies.
I mean, to look at populations that don't vaccinate as heavily or are living, closer to nature. I mean, they don't deal with as much chronic disease as we have. They deal with infectious disease, that's for sure, which is something we have become afraid of in America. We have been trained to be afraid of infections that have happened in the world forever. Like, I mean, people have been getting sick with pathogens for since the beginning of time, you know, but we have been trained to be so afraid of getting sick that we want to be protected so bad. I think it really speaks to, you know, the government or whatever sort of market is coming in saying we will save you and giving you this product that's going to protect you for life. That's how it's marketed. That is how it's marketed, and it's completely safe. There's nothing wrong with it. It's totally effective. You will never get any disease again. I mean, that is how it's marketed. Now, if you actually talk to a lot of individual doctors, they will give you informed consent. They will tell you that's not true. You will not never get this disease. Like a lot of doctors actually, have the mind to tell you some of the facts. But what I think is really interesting is some of them where they weigh the it it's almost like it's so hard to describe where you're just like, okay, so you're telling me it's safe and effective. But when you tell me for how long it's actually effective, it's really not that long. And then when you tell me I can actually still get the disease when I'm vaccinated, that's not really effective. Like, or, you tell me that there's a chance of all of these like little issues happening, like a febrile seizure, encephalitis, anaphylaxis. Like, I mean, there's so many different adverse events that could happen. It's like they'll acknowledge it, but then continue to say the vaccine is safe and effective. And so it really is a cognitive dissonance there that's really difficult to get over.
Yeah, well, I think that's actually one of the beautiful things that happened with COVID situation is people are questioning more than I think they ever have. So, Katie, thank you so much for taking the time to visit with me and share. So, where can people go and find you and follow along and get you put out great tips almost daily. So, where can we send them?
Yeah, yeah, you can go to my Instagram, kdc.pac. That stands for Physician Assistant Certified, and that's where most of my content is. I have also a Facebook, KDC PAC there, and you can follow me on there as well. The links for that. Most of my content though is on Instagram, and so you can get a hold of me there.
You're doing a great job. Thank you again, my friend.
Thank you.